Hi, everyone. Happy Hustle Show episode 76, 75, 76, something like that. Yay for consistency. Go me. Tonight, I want to talk to you about apples. Yep, they get more obscure. I was just thinking about this today. So I was reading something about apples and it reminded me of something else. And then it reminded me of a side hustle lesson. So I'll just give people a minute to jump on so you're not catching me halfway through. And I will tell you that I have had such a brilliant day because I have been working with a small business that works to support the cinema industry in Scotland. And my very first proper job, so I've told you loads about my side hustles, but my very first proper job when I came out of uni, so I like worked in bars and stuff, but my first proper job was as duty manager of a cinema in Edinburgh. And it was just like, I loved it. There was so much learning from it. And I wouldn't, anyway, there was a lot of learning from it. Hi, Mariam. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being in that industry. And I still love going to the cinema today, but I haven't worked in or around cinemas since I was in my early 20s. So it's a significant amount of time. Anyway, today we've just been having all these conversations about like ushers and popcorn and it's just been brilliant. And connecting with people that also kind of worked either in the same cinema or around the same time, like somebody that was working in the Edinburgh Film Festival when the cinema I was working in were hosting the premieres and stuff. It's just been brilliant. Love the cinema. Good evening, everybody. We're going to the cinema for the first time post-COVID on Sunday because that's what my husband wants to do for Father's Day. That's what he chose to do. So we're going out for dinner and we're going to the cinema. I can't wait. It feels like, I know it's not normal. Do you know what they were telling me though? And this is only in Scotland. This is not in England. And I'm not sure about Wales, Northern Ireland, apologies. But so you know how, so Scotland has 2 meter distancing. So hi, Shona. So when you meet with somebody, we still have 2 meter social distancing, right? And that applies in the cinema. So the 2 meter standard social distancing rule in Scotland applies in the cinema and I think in theatres as well. And I think that's causing the challenge. So what they were saying was that for a cinema to be profitable and also have 2 meter social distancing between, groups of people in the same bubble, it's just very, very difficult for them to even break even on that. But in England, and again, apologies, and I know it's really annoying when you live in the UK and you don't live in England and people just talk about what goes on in England. Like, I get it. I lived in Northern Ireland, I live in Scotland, but I only know this fact about England. In England, the social distancing has been brought down to 1 meter for cinemas and theatres, maybe, not sure, but definitely for cinemas. That's what I learned today. So although that's still challenging for the cinema industry in England, it is possible for them to turn a bit of a profit if they fill, and there's a whole lot of other challenges around whether people are going and whether there's any films out and all of that. But in Scotland, if you go into the cinema, you have to sit 2 meters apart. But if you go to the cafe in the cinema, so a lot, cinemas have like a Costa or a Starbucks or whatever in them. If you go there, you can 1 meter social distance, take off your mask, sit across the table from someone and chat to them, but you cannot sit like 1 meter apart from them and look straight ahead with a mask on in the cinema. It's just like, and I know all of this stuff is so difficult to manage. Like, I know there's no right answer to all the kind of COVID, protection measures. But I did really feel for them today. And they said the reason that they were telling me that in England that has been taken away for a significant amount of time is that on the evidence, there doesn't seem to have been a COVID outbreak that's been linked to a cinema. So even though for a significant amount of time, I'd be lying if I told you, but certainly a significant amount of months in England, that has been the case and there hasn't been a COVID outbreak. Now, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? But I really felt for them because it's like soft play centres, they seem to be yeah, there seems to be some inconsistencies in, and as I say, it's not, I do not envy the government. There's no easy and right answer to that, but I felt for them. What am I going to see? I'm going to see, it's called Nobody. I think my husband chose it. Father's Day. I'll let him choose it. I wanted to go and see Pacific Heights. I don't know if anyone's seen that. It's like, oh, it looks really dancey and upbeat. My husband and my 2 teenage boys will be having none of that. They wanted to go and see A Quiet Place too. That was the other one. But I don't like a scary film. I'm not a fan of the scary film. Anyway, so we're going to see Nobody. I don't mind. Just a day out to the cinema is exciting. Anyway, now that there's some of you on, I shall talk about apples. So today I want to talk about apples. And the reason I want to talk about apples is I've heard about them in 2 contexts in the last day. So the first context I heard about them was in a bullying experiment or bullying no, not demonstration. That's not the right word. Bullying demonstration, like an anti-bullying demonstration. That's better. In schools, and the Hitman's Wife Bodyguard. So I really wanted to see The Hitman's Bodyguard, Kerry, and I went to see it, and I was so incredibly disappointed. And I really love the actors, and I thought the trailer looked brilliant. But I don't know, I maybe just wasn't in the mood for it, because I know it actually got really good reviews. Anyway, that's an aside. So back to apples. So 2 apples and a anti-bullying demonstration in a school. I was just reading about this. And what they did was they got the 2 apples, they got 1 apple, and they basically threw it in the floor, so without the kids being there, threw it in the floor, make sure it was totally bashed, like totally battered, but not breaking the skin. And the other apple wasn't. And they put both the apples on a table, and they said to relatively young primary school kids, these are 2 apples. One's a lovely apple and one's a horrible apple. And I want you to go up and I want you to talk to them. I want you to talk to these apples. And the kids were like, oh, well, let's talk to the nice apple and talk to the horrible apple. And they were going to the nice apple and they were saying, oh, you're such a lovely apple. And look at you, you're all red and lovely and shiny. And I love you, lovely, happy apple. And then they were going to the rotten, the horrible apple, which looked exactly the same. And they were saying, you're a horrible apple. Look at you, you're all... Anyway, they let the kids do this for a while. Great psychology experiment. It's based on a lot of kind of psychological research over the years where people were actually doing this to other people, loads of experiments around it, and how people kind of, when they see other people being mean or other people being nice, that's really infectious. So if everybody's being horrible to that one person, that's how kind of, like group bullying happens. Anyway, all these kids were really horrible to this apple, feeling for the apple. And so they let the kids do this, and then they all went and sat back down again once they'd all spoken to the apple. And then they said, so look at those 2 apples, like what's the difference between them? And the kids were like, nothing. They just look exactly the same, but one's a horrible apple and one's a really happy apple. And they got a knife and they cut the apples open. And the happy apple was beautiful inside. It was just white and, apple colored and juicy and fresh and lovely. And when they cut the horrible apple open, it was all bashed and bruised and battered inside. And I thought it was really powerful. And they said to the kids, saying horrible things to someone, you maybe don't see the impact it has on them. Like you maybe don't think that it's impacting them in any way, but cut it open and look at the inside of this apple. Look what horrible words can do. That's a brilliant way of showing young kids about bullying. What has this got to do with side hustles? I will segue back. Then later today, I read the apple thing yesterday. It was this morning. I was just that was definitely the order. Read the apple thing yesterday. This morning I was out for my walk and I was listening to Happy by Fern Cotton, which is our book in our book club in the Happy Hustle Hive for this 2-month period. And Fern was talking about apples, and she was talking about 2 apples, very similar thing, but 2 apples where They did the same thing. So adults this time, not, well, anybody, talked to a lovely apple, said how lovely it was, how wonderful it was, how much they loved it. Talked to the other apple, said how horrible it was, how much they hated it, and continued to do that for, I think she said it was 10 days. Not quite sure in the amount of days, but something like that. And then cut the apples open. So the same experiment, but this time one of the apples hadn't been primed and thrown against the wall and made to be significantly bruisey on the inside. And when they cut them open, same thing. Lovely apple, rotten apple, the one that got the horrible things said to it. There's a really famous experiment, can't remember the name, on same thing done with a jar of water. Dr. Can't remember the name. I'll look it up. But I think he's Japanese. And what he did was same thing with water. But without saying it, two jars of water. Jars. Yeah, I think they were jars of water. Put a Post-it note on it with love on one and hate on the other. Just as simple as that. Post-it note with love on one, hate on the other. Left it for, I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly how long, say 10 days again, roughly. And then looked at the water crystals under a high magnifying microscope. And the one that had love on it had really beautiful, symmetrical, beautifully formed water crystals. And the one that had hate on it had horrible, spiky, asymmetrical, just rotten looking crystals. And all of these things got me thinking, not about bullying at all, but about what we say to ourselves. So if words and thoughts, and just even a Post-it sticker on your head, if you're a jar of water, can have that impact on water or an apple, as complex human beings, imagine the power that words are having on your entire makeup, on every cell in your body. As a side hustler, we can be really hard on ourselves. We can be really, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't think this is good enough. No one's doing this. We can constantly be telling ourselves the things that are going wrong. We can constantly be wondering if we're good enough. We can constantly be looking at other people's side hustles where they do something similar to us and thinking, wow, I'm nowhere near as good as that. Think about the things that you think about. It's not even the things you say out loud, but the things that you think every day about your abilities, about your capacity to create an amazing side hustle, to bring joy to other people. When the doubts creep in, which they do for us all, and they tend to come in waves, don't they? The doubts come in waves. So sometimes we're on a high and we're like, yes, I can do this. I am side hustle extraordinaire. I can do this. I have just got a sale. Somebody else has just inquired. It's all coming together nicely. I am on fire. And then a couple of days later, it might go a bit quiet and you go, oh no, what if no one ever buys from me again? What if everybody thinks my stuff's terrible? Just be so super careful what you're saying to yourself, because if those words can have that impact on an apple or some water, the impact and the stress that you're putting on your own body by doubting yourself, by worrying, by not stepping into your own power, just by every step that you're moving forward, I want you to celebrate. I want you to look in the mirror in the morning and say, I love you, to the person that you see in the mirror. How does that sound to you? If you were to to look in the mirror and say, I love you to yourself, does that make you cringe? How does that feel? Because you have to love yourself. You have to be the person that owns your energy, that owns your power, that owns the joy that you bring to your side hustle. Because so much of your side hustle success is dictated by your mindset and dictated by how you feel and dictated by how confident you are. I was speaking to someone today and she was just incredible. So she had told me about her career. She told me about what she was doing now. And like, I only just met her and I was awe-inspired by how she had gone through life. And I said to her, where do you think you might be in like 5 years? What's the plan? Because I was trying to help her with some coaching and she said, oh, I'm not sure. I don't know if I can go any higher than this. I don't. And I'm like, wow, like I see you as somebody who could go for global domination. But despite all the evidence she had just presented to me, and I just met her, she couldn't see that in herself and she was holding herself small. And it almost made me cry. Like, I know that's really dramatic, but I just felt like if you could, side hustlers, if you could see yourself the way others see you, if you could love yourself the way others love you, if you could step into that power, if you could just own that, the world is your oyster. And just know that side hustle comes in peaks and troughs. Some weeks it's not going to be as busy as the weeks that you just thought it's all happening, it's all amazing. There's so many reasons for that. But keep pushing forward and the waves go up. It goes in an upward trajectory. It's not smooth. It's never smooth. I wish it was. I wish we could just go, oh, I got this today. That means tomorrow I'm going to get one more and the next time I'm going to get one more and I can see exactly how this is going to work. No matter how much your best efforts are, it's never going to be that straightforward. But when you step into your power, when you make sure the words that you're saying to yourself are the words that create the happy apple and not the bruised apple, global domination is there for each and every one of you. And every time I see someone posting and saying, and I want you to, I'm not saying don't post, but every time I see someone posting and saying, oh, you know, I'm not sure about this, or, you know, oh, someone didn't like this or whatever, it just breaks my heart because sometimes one person's opinion is enough to almost internally override all the other great opinions that you've had, all the other great support, the great advice. And your lesson for life is don't let that happen. Like, be aware that you're put on this earth to give your gift to the world. And that's what you're finding with your side hustle. And if you've got that thing that brings you absolute joy, you've got it. Even if you're not quite there, but you've got something, then you're on the path to that. But step into it. Watch the words that you say to yourself. Make sure you're treating yourself like the happy, healthy, wonderful apple. I am going to leave you on that note. Have a wonderful weekend and I will see you all on Monday. Take care, everybody.